someone that's afraid of failure, I mean, you must obviously still have occasionally bad gigs or have had bad gigs along the way. How do you cope with that as a comic, and how do you come back from it?
Now, if I have, I don't really have bad gigs. Now, that might sound tremendously arrogant. I mean, corporate gigs, I can still absolutely die on my arse silence for half an hour, but they're quite a specific thing.
What about in the past, though, when you were starting out?
When I was starting, well, I guess as long as I don't know how people who continually have bad gigs, I don't know how they continue, but I guess my hit rate was okay, and that kept me going. You know, you can if you're having 4 or 5 good ones, then you can cope with a bad one because you've got the 4 or 5 good ones to keep you going and get things into perspective. And there's usually a reason for it. You know, whether it's something you did or something specific about the room or the audience, or you know, you can usually pin it down. Usually.
How has your style kind of developed over the years? 'Cause I mean, at the moment it's kind of observation based in kind of whimsy, I suppose, and just kind of absurd situations based in kind of traditional observational comedy. But is that how it's always been, or has it developed over the years?
It's changed completely. Absolutely, completely changed. When I started out, it was very, very deadpan, very small, very subtle. I had a lot of pausing. You know, I was very economical with the words and would just say one line and pause and one line. It was very surreal. It was all entirely fictional, very obviously so. It was completely surreal, crazy stuff. And I suppose if you know, in character, it was kind of a little bit Milton Jonesy. You know, it was a character act really, and I got bored of that. I felt constrained like that, so I couldn't wait really to break out. And once I became more comfortable on stage, after 3 or 4 years, I started to break out and want to be much more myself. Which I kind of went through that phase, and now I'm in this ranting, raving, mental stage I seem to be in, which I'm really enjoying, and it may be slightly cathartic, it might not, I don't know. But I'm certainly much more myself up there, much more conversational and loose, and which is what I want to be.
I mean, I was going to say, I've seen your last 2 shows and I've enjoyed them very much, but I actually particularly, I love your podcast. That actually has me in bits. I genuinely love the podcast. So I just wondered, would you think your style will continue to evolve and change, or would you like to kind of try different ideas and shows, or try different kind of areas of comedy?
I don't have any, you know, characters up my sleeve or any particular idea or notions of where I want to go or how I want to be. It's just evolved from being on stage, and it's been very, you know, that cliche organic thing. It has been. It's just, so I don't have any particular. I don't have any notions of how I want to be or any ideas that I want. I'll just keep evolving. I think, but I'm sort of enjoying and kind of made a little bit of a name for myself, I suppose. The ranting. So I'm quite happy to carry on with that for a while. Seems to be working. So.
Do you still enjoy structuring a well thought out comedy show, or do you prefer to do the more improvised style?
My shows are very, very heavily structured, and I don't quite know why that is. The first show I did in Edinburgh was called 1984, and it was heavily structured, and I just seem to have carried on doing that. It helps me write a show if there's a structure to it, if there's a story to it, if there's things that link back to earlier. You know, if it's like a film or a book that has a structure and a narrative, I just seem to have done that, and I think it's quite hard to change. Sometimes it's quite hard to change what you do. The thought of, I love improvising, and when I'm on tour I do quite a lot of stuff with the audience conversation. I improvise quite a lot, but I think I will always have at its heart a fairly solid narrative with a quite a cohesive structure to it.
And how do you write that? Do you get the ideas for what you think's funny first and then build the story around it, or does the story come first, or is it?
No, I get little snippets of material, a little idea for a show that can come out of nothing. I mean, the whole award-winning mince pie came out of me being in the services, seeing a pie with an award-winning mince pie sign. So I suppose it's not out of nothing; it's out of a very specific thing. But the whole hour of story arranged, that was the starting point. Was just seeing this thing, and then all the bits of material I had at that point, I stick them down on a document, and then from there I start to work a narrative. So the same thing this year. There's this guy in Canterbury who brings me gifts. you know, and so I did say in a gig, I actually said to him, I think that specific thing I said to him in a gig was, you know, he brought me the mince pies, he brought me the grapes, he keeps bringing things that relate to the title of the show, and I did say something to him that night about, I hope you're going to enjoy the next year's show, it's going to be called Rhod Gilbert and the Giraffe, or whatever it was, something to just piss him off and stop him bringing something to the gig next year. And it just, and then any material I've got at the time, I stick it on a document, and then I start to build a story that goes with the title, and it interweaves all this stuff, but it all starts from very, very small points. There's no big idea at the start, you know, there's no big story, narrative idea, it all just gets made out of bits.
Do you still feel yourself when you're performing a structured show, or does it feel more like a procedure?
It can feel a little bit like a procedure, and sometimes I feel a little bit restricted by it. And I suppose the answer to the last question, I would quite like one day just to do a show that was just loads of material and loads of improvising with no structure and no story, but I kind of feel it's a bit of a cop-out. The reason I'm tempted to do it is because maybe I'm getting lazy and can't be asked to put the effort in to structure a show and have a narrative. And certainly in Edinburgh, when you've got to do the same hour every single night, then it can really feel restrictive, and you just think, I really want to break out of this bloody story that I've told 24 times in the last 2.5 weeks. But when you come out on tour, because you can let it breathe and talk to people more, and talk to the audience and hecklers, and you know, it just becomes a much bigger thing, and your story is just the thing that you keep coming back to, and I think that's quite a nice sort of spine to be able to come back to. So I don't feel it's so restrictive when I'm on tour, but in Edinburgh certainly, when there's nothing else going on, yeah.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that. That's great.